Hey everybody, picking it back up. This is part 4 of Every Man's Battle. I started this part before, but my phone overheated and didn't save anything. So not really sure what happened there, but we're gonna get right back into it. This section, it starts by saying, or it's called Feeling Good. Back in Iowa, I began attending a marriage class led by Joel Budd, the associate pastor of my new church. It wasn't long before I realized that I knew nothing about treating women properly. Perhaps it was because my mom and dad were divorced, and I never saw a loving relationship modeled at home. More likely, however, it was because of my own selfishness and sexual sin. Everything I knew about women came from one-night stands and casual dating relationships. I didn't date during that year under Joel's teaching. I might have been the only man in history to attend a married couples class for a whole year without even having so much as a single date. But just before the 12-month mark, I prayed this simple prayer: Lord, I've been in this class for a year and I've learned a lot about women, but I'm not sure I've ever seen these things in real life. I've never really known any Christian girls. Please show me a woman who embodies these godly characteristics. I wasn't asking for a date, girlfriend, or spouse. I just wanted to see these teachings in practice in real life, that I might understand them better. God did far more than that. 1 week later, he introduced me to my future wife, Brenda, and we fell in love. Out of our commitment to Christ, Brenda and I decided to stay pure before marriage. She was a virgin, and I wished I were. We'd kiss, however, and whoa, our lip smacking was wonderful. It was my first experience of something I would later discover far more deeply: the physically gratifying payoff that comes from obedience to God's sexual standards. In a song made popular during my senior year in college, the singer mourned about trying to remember how it used to feel when a kiss was something special. The lyrics from the song resonated sadly with me because at that point in my life, a kiss meant nothing to me. It was a joyless prerequisite on the path to intercourse, something that was deeply wrong. But now, having cut way back in my experience with Brenda, the simple kiss became thrilling again. To an old sex hog like me, this was totally unexpected. As God continued to work in my life, Brenda and I married, honeymooned in Colorado, then settled into a new apartment building on the edge of a cornfield in a Des Moines suburb. Is this heaven? I surely thought so. Time passed at first. I was feeling good. While I was once engaged to 2 women at the same time, I was now happily married to one woman. While I once drowned in pornography, since my wedding day, I hadn't purchased a pornographic magazine. Given my track record, this was remarkable. Now, I want to go back real quick and just look at the very beginning of this. Early on here in this section, he was talking about the way he was previously living with all of the different women, and the way he viewed sex, and the way he viewed women, the way he treated women. And he said, perhaps it was because my mom and dad were divorced, and I never saw a loving relationship modeled at home. I find that very interesting because with the couples that Kimberly and I are working with on a daily basis, literally every day, we see so much of this exact same thing. And what we notice is this: even if we know our model of marriage from our parents was not good, and so many of us have a bad example of what marriage was from our parents, it wasn't good a lot of the time. We do one of 2 things. We either model ourselves in our lives after what our parents did, even though we know it wasn't good. Even if we know it wasn't good, we still seem to follow those patterns. Or we do it after friends. And I don't mean your friends. Again, I don't mean the friends, the people that you hang around with, your buddies, your pals, the people you guys hang out with on the daily basis. I'm talking about friends, literally. We model it after the TV show Friends, or some other sitcom, or some other movie. We think that this is the way we should live our lives. And these actors and these people portray such horrible characteristics of what relationships, dating, or marriage should look like. It's rarely a good thing. The next section is called Stopping Short. I threw myself into my sales career and my leadership roles at church. Then I became a dad. I relished it all, and my Christian image shined brighter and brighter. By worldly standards, I was doing great. Just one little problem. By God's standard of sexual purity, I wasn't even close to living His vision for marriage. Clearly, I'd taken steps towards purity, but I was learning that God's standards were higher than I'd ever imagined, and that my Father had hopes for me. That my Father had higher hopes for me than I had even dreamed. My Father had higher hopes for me than I had even dreamed. It soon became clear that I stopped far short of holiness. This is something that most people do, even Christian people. Most Christian people stop far short of real holiness in these ways. It soon became clear that I'd stopped far short of holiness. There were the ad inserts, the double entendres, my heat-seeking eyes. My mind continued to daydream and fantasize over old girlfriends. These were more than a hint of sexual immorality. More than a hint of sexual immorality. Hear me here. I was paying the price. The bills were piling up. First, I could never look God in the eye. I could never fully worship Him because I dreamed of being with other women and rather enjoyed mentally recalling past sexual conquests. I knew I was a hypocrite, and I continued feeling distant from God. People around me disagreed, saying, "Oh, come on. Nobody can control their eyes and their mind, for heaven's sakes. God loves you. It must be something else." But I knew differently. My prayer life was feeble. Once my son was very sick and had to be rushed to the emergency room. Did I rush into prayer? No. I could only rush to others to pray for me. "Have you called our pastor to pray?" I asked Brenda. "Have you called Ron? Have you called Red to pray?" I had no faith in my own prayers because of my sin. My faith was weak in other ways as well. As a full commission salesperson, if I lost a number of deals in a row to the competition, I could never be sure if those setbacks weren't somehow caused by my sin. I had no peace. I was paying a price for my sin. My marriage was suffering as well. Because of my sin, I couldn't commit 100% to Brenda out of fear that she might dump me later. That cost Brenda in closeness. Hear that part. That cost Brenda in closeness. But that's not all. Brenda told me she was experiencing frightening dreams in which she was being chased by Satan. Was my immorality causing spiritual protection to be taken away from her? My wife was paying a price. At church, I was an empty suit. I came to church desperately needing ministry and forgiveness. I never arrived ready to minister to others. Of course, my prayers were no more effective in God's house than anywhere else. My church was paying a price. I remember listening to one sermon in which the pastor talked about generational sins, patterns of sin passed from father to son, like in Exodus 34, verse 7. Sitting in my pew, I recalled my grandfather had run off from his wife in the middle of the Great Depression, leaving her with 6 kids to raise. My father left his family to pursue multiple sexual affairs. That same pattern had been passed on to me, proven by my own multiple affairs in college. Though saved, I now found that I still didn't have this purity issue settled in my life, and I was scared by the thought of this pattern passing on to my kids. My children could be paying a price. I'm going to pick this back up in just a moment in part 5, okay? So stick with me, and we're going to go through this a little bit more.